My name is Zach. I run the bookstall, but I'm talking on behalf of Leather Delights, who sell lots of lovely things, including quite a big range of collars. So today's talk is about collars and collaring. To start with, this is not a collar. It's not a collar because I'm a top and I'm single. Therefore, this is a piece of jewellery. It is not a collar. Any more than that is a wedding ring, despite being on my wedding finger. So, point one, anything to do with collaring as opposed to just collars, it's about what it means to you and whether you're playing with. Assume nothing. Rule one of keep negotiation, assume nothing. Ask, discuss, negotiate. Otherwise, we end up with hurt feelings and disappointments. If I were to put a collar on one of you by way of a demonstration, that wouldn't mean I have to take you home and keep you and feed you. I'm not actually going to put a collar on anyone because these don't belong to me. I have borrowed them from Leather Delights, and therefore I'm not putting them on anybody because it's just not what is happening. Collars mean all sorts of things to all sorts of people. For some people, a collar like that would just be a bit of like punk rock edgy jewellery. I mean, most of the audience are a little bit young to remember the original punk days, but quite a lot of people wore dog collars in them days, just like, you know, look at me, I'm so cool and edgy. Which may have led to the odd misunderstanding, or may have led to the odd happy misunderstanding, which led to something more interesting at a later date. Whenever you're thinking about putting a collar on or putting a collar onto somebody else, it's very, very, very important to be clear about what you mean by it. Because I have heard of the occasional disappointment where it's like, oh, playing with a relatively new son. Right, I'm going to put this collar on you. Oops. No, that isn't what I meant. I'm sorry, that isn't what I meant. You're very, very nice, but that isn't what I meant. I do not want to make you my property yet. We'll see what happens later, but not yet. Because there are all sorts of interpretations of wearing a collar. There are graduations of wearing collars, which we're going to come back to. It's also the fact that if you see somebody else walking around wearing a collar, and I see quite a few collars worn here today. Now, I am not making any assumptions about any of you because I don't know any of you and I haven't asked any of you. For some of you, it might be that you're wearing a collar because, hey, I'm in a kink environment. Wearing a collar is a very recognisable kinky trope. It's like, hey, collar, kink, cool. For some people, you put the collar on at the start of a play scene, whatever your particular negotiation is. Sometimes for casual, semi-casual relationships, putting on the collar is like, right, we're in play space now. Now you will serve or submit or whatever works for you. Sometimes somebody will wear a collar in a fetish club. They're not collared to anyone. They're wearing a collar to indicate that, hi, I am a submissive. There used to be a bit of a trope in my younger clubbing days in the early 90s of generally single men who would wear a collar with a lead on it and sort of stand there holding out the lead optimistically. Didn't work all that well. Again, this is where we're going on to assumptions and not communication. You can communicate these things. And sometimes wearing a collar in a club when you're unaccompanied means that you're actually owned, but your dom is busy or not with you tonight or doing something else. But like collar means don't talk to me without my dom's permission. That stuff generally happens in very high protocol environments, and if you make a mistake in a generally kink environment, not a very strictly controlled protocol environment, if you make a mistake and somebody gets the arse with you, and they're the ones who are being silly, because you cannot assume that everybody knows your specific rules and dynamics. As I say often to people who are new in the fetish club scene, if you've got basic company manners, if you can interact with new people in a new space, you'll be all right. And people who are very, very, very high protocol need to remember that not everyone knows all their rules. And they shouldn't bark at someone who makes what is clearly a sincere, honest, not maliciously intentioned mistake. Right. course, some of the stuff that's interesting about collars and being collared is that you don't necessarily wear an actual collar everywhere if you are a collared sub, because there are many reasons why you might not be able to. Sometimes it's a sensory thing, you actually can't tolerate anything around your neck. Sometimes you've got the sort of job where you can't. Right, let me see this blind. We all sit on each other's laps in a minute anyway. If you are collared as a sign of commitment to a relationship, then some of the things you might wear might not be a collar at all. You might have a tattoo. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I run the bookstore upstairs, and I've got one book with a story about somebody having their collar tattooed on. Sharon? Okay. Some people might wear a ring or a bracelet, an ankle chain, or have a tattoo on their bum, or something like that that says, you know, I belong to the owner. But there are also aspects of, like, if you are fully collared, you can still have a range of different collars that you wear. You can have your playtime collar, which might have a ring in it. That means you can be led around with a lead or tied to the wall. If you're being put into a restraint, so terrible things can be done to you. But if you work in a vanilla environment, you might have a particular necklace, say something like this, which I can't remember where I got from now to the present, but this is a plain fixed around the neck piece of jewellery that could give an indication to a like-minded person. Oh, hello. You into this? There are all sorts of collars. You're right. There are collars that are predominantly decorative. So this one you could attach something to, and use it to attach a person to something. This one, I've advised the buckle can lock, so they can't take that one off themselves. This is your heavy duty lead or tie to the wall if you've got a fighty sub. This is, you know, good and sturdy, won't do any harm. This is a different matter. This is a posture presentation collar. You do not wear something like this full time. Wouldn't be healthy. But if you wear it, it keeps the head up, keeps their posture good. And that is nice if you're doing a sort of public play that's like, look how well trained my slave is. Hello.
Like the fighting collar, the fact that it has a double loop, does that help with the fighting? Is that like particularly good? I feel like I don't know.
Well, it's also the fact this is good sturdy leather. It pops out, it's not my fault.
I see, there's a bit of articulation there.
Yeah, a good move. There are also, again, for those who are into protocols, there are stages of collars, as there are stages of relationship. Similar to which, if you're going for a traditional relationship, you have an engagement ring and a wedding ring. It's also what's called, apparently it's a bit of an American thing, a promise ring, which is like you're not quite engaged yet, but you're committed. Or the old wearing, what was it, the pin on the sweater. This is American high school thing. You wear your partner's badge on your sweater, and he's like, I'm not going to think of my boyfriend, whatever.
It's just so cute, like yeah, you're wearing a pin saying open line.
I don't
Well,
think
no,
you can do that anymore.
I think it's quite like it's the
It's an
American
old-fashioned thing.
Yeah, it's an American fraternity thing, isn't it? You, the girl wears the guy's fraternity pin or something like that.
And it's like a whole ceremony. And
Oh,
It's
I'm
also
American, and I was
yeah.
it's also common in Southeast Asia and the Far East for that.
Okay. Yeah, so pre-engagement, engagement. I made some notes for this one.
It's also called a favour.
Purity ring.
A favour.
No.
Oh yeah.
Favours,
Yeah.
Favours.
Yeah, I mean that also goes right back to medieval knights in armour stuff. You'd wear your lady, if you were a knight in shining armour, you would wear your lady's scarf, a ribbon on your. Yeah, you might have that. There are all sorts of ways you can show your commitment to one another. So there's endless variations in that, and whatever suits you, good for you. I did look into this a little bit, but again, a high protocol, old school. There's a training collar when you are actually. No, I've read the wrong bit here. A collar of consideration, which is apparently often blue. Blue is the colour of the collar of consideration. Somebody would wear that when you started dating and you kind of mutually agree that you would like to progress to a deeper commitment, to a full-blown DS relationship, but you're still in the early days, so you're still feeling your way. But a collar of consideration means we're thinking about this. You are committing yourself to me on a certain level, and we are focusing on the fact that this relationship is progressing. Next level up is the training collar, which apparently, according to traditions, is usually black or red, and quite plain, quite unadorned. So perhaps something like that would serve as a training collar, because it has its ring on it that you could attach to things. It's also quite a light, simple collar. And then when you get to the full collar or the slave collar, those are often collars that are putting one on is a big deal. People have collaring ceremonies and they invite their friends, and it's not dissimilar to a marriage ceremony. So you invite friends along, you have a bit of a party, including various DS rituals I presided years ago. One of the other things I do is wedding celebrant, and I did it was a wedding ceremony rather than a collaring ceremony, but part of it was that the sub was then bent over to be ritually abused by all the guests. So yeah, you can do that. Normally a collar for a collaring ceremony would be something that you go and shop for together or have custom made, because it would have personalised tokens on it. It would be moderately elaborate. It might be black leather or metal with little charms hanging off it, and you might indeed have a little charm that says "Don't do the fuck toy" on it. Though this is where you get into the area of can you wear this to work? Perhaps not. Perhaps you have one that you can be taken off when you have to go to work and replaced with a plain necklace or indeed a plain leather band. But custom making is a thing. There are also permanent locking collars, because there's the commitment, the promise, the psychological element of you're never going to take my collar off, you belong to me. This is permanent. And then there is the time when, no matter how committed you are to one another, the collar has to be removed. There are a couple of trainers here who do the metal collars. There are types you can get with a padlock and a key. Years ago I wrote a scene in the book where the final commitment was put the collar on, lock the padlock, take the key and destroy it in front of the sub's eyes, you will never be free. That was fiction. It's not a good idea in real life, because otherwise you end up down the police station with the bolt cutters in an emergency. Not good. There are collars with locks. I took advice from Affordable Leather on the metal collars that he sells, and says, to be honest, you could with a pair of pliers just whip that one off. However, the ones they have upstairs on Trust UK with a number combination lock, don't forget. I said to him, Chris, what happens if somebody forgets a number? He said, it's a hacksaw job.
Or 2 spanners.
Possibly. I don't know that I fancy my chances with any of that. The other thing is about collars is that doms occasionally wear collars. I've had a collar that I considered a dominance collar, because it doesn't have a D-ring on the front. Fucking great spikes. One thing round. As is often the case when you get married, all participants have a ring or a token of some description. For the dominant, you might have a wrist cuff with the key to the collar's padlock hanging off it, or you might have a tattoo, or you might indeed have a necklace with padlocking on it. There are all sorts of things you can do to to indicate your commitment. But the very, very important thing is making sure that everyone involved is on the same page, understands what they're doing and why. Now, play collars come in a variety of shapes and forms. So you can have a posture collar for showing off your slave. This sort of thing's particularly good if you're at the sort of event where there's a slave auction.
Those are fun.
Oh, indeed. I once ended up buying 20 slaves in a slave auction. Me and my friend, we bought 20 slaves between us. Because it was one of those events where there were rather more slaves than there were purchasers. And me and Sarah, we felt very sorry for these slaves, so we just bought them all. And then we didn't know what to do with them. We put them in a circle, kneeling down, hands and knees, asses in the air, asses facing inwards, and we ran round and round this circle, whacking their asses. Round and round.
When else would you get the chance to do that? I mean, come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, sadly it's not yet an Olympic sport. But you never know. I think we have kind of, the spiky collar thing. I'm sure I have heard of the idea of a collar which has spikes or prickles on the inside. So it causes distress. What a shame. I haven't seen any today, and I'm not 100% sure that it isn't something I read about in fiction rather than saw in action.
No, I've seen it.
You have seen one? Yeah. I've heard of it. If you're going to do stuff like that, you need to be quite careful because it is quite dangerous. Also, with any collar that's going to pull, check it fits well and go careful. There's another school today that has these collars with a ring where you can kind of tighten or not tighten, but it won't tighten to danger points. When you're shopping for a collar other than your formal commitment equivalent to a wedding ring collar, try it on. Give it a pull. If it's got a ring on you and a tug on it, make sure it doesn't cut in unwantedly. Check it's all right for your neck. I have quite a thick neck, so I don't. Some, accessories tight necklaces are like, no, can't do. Things have to fit. Things have to be comfortable in wear so you don't cause unintended discomfort. A big difference between causing discomfort for fun and causing discomfort that spoils the scene. As with everything, you play with the person you're playing with, not the imaginary person of your dreams, not what your mates do with their partners. You play with the person you're playing with, you talk, you negotiate, you make sure everybody understands. Now, do we have any questions or anything you would like to? Anyone like to share? Oh, with the class? Hello.
How much space do you need for a collar like I'm wearing? How much space do you need?
I would say you need to be able to get a finger down without too much difficulty. If it's too tight, you might well get skin rashes as well as other problems. It needs to feel comfy. You put it on and you can walk about and it's like, yeah, I feel fine, my breathing is not restricted, as opposed to a specific breath restriction scene. Particularly is one you're going to wear all the time. It needs to feel comfy, it needs to feel like a part of you. That's what it's meant to be. And if you have allergies or other reasons why it's going to be uncomfortable for you, negotiate with your partner about other methods of showing your commitment to one another. I think it's gone now, but there used to be a thing called the slave registry. Anyone remember the slave registry?
Still going.
Still going?
Yeah,
I thought
still.
they called it. Okay. That you could apply to, it's a number for your slave. The idea was that the slave would then have that tattooed somewhere about their person. Slave number so and so. I would add that none of this was legally binding. But if it felt good and important to a lot of people, so yeah, go for it. I should probably mention the fact that uncollaring, when you've done a sort of protocol collar or a collar that involves a degree of commitment, can be very upsetting. It's often the right thing to do, but it can make people quite sad. It's just like a breakup. It's like giving that wedding ring, engagement ring, or whatever. It is generally advised that if the dom bought the sub a collar and gave it to them as a gift, then it belongs to the sub. It's a gift that for some people it's like, no, the collar should be given back to the dom, but it will be regarded as a little naff and vulgar if the dom then gave it to the next sub. Yeah, little tasteless and penny pinching. But sometimes you may even want to have a formal ceremony of removing the collar, placing it in the dom's hands again. That would probably be more of a private thing than a big public one, public uncollaring. Not for some people if you're king of humiliation, but probably not for everyone else. So it's my phone going to beep. I don't think it's anyone going to write time's up, shut.
No, it's not.
Good.
That's my job.
Okay. Further things to share? Questions to ask? Right, in that case, I
Right,
think
finish
we
running.
will. I think we'll call that quits for today. And yeah, if you want to buy collars, there are plenty of places to buy them. The play collars, practice collars, all that sort of thing. There's even you can get the Trust UK got the number lock jobs. If anybody's in the market for such a thing. Have fun, talk to your partners, play with the people you're with, and see how you get on. Thank you very much for coming and listening.
If I could ask you all to leave by this door rather than going out the front door, thank you.
Hello, my dear.
Hello, thanks.
How are we?
Hanging in there, how are you?
I moved. I'm now living in Erdington. No,
All right.
outskirts of
You have a nice day. First
I had 3 people come up to me and what was like, "Can I take with you?" They